Hello! Uh-oh, my audio is muted. There we go. Hi, everybody! Hang on, let me restart my music playlist real quick. There we go. There we go, some heckin' jams. Some heckin' jams. Let me move my stuff around. Hello! Hello, wonderful people. Hi! Hi, everybody! What's up? Hey, I did not say to start the slideshow already. Get out of here. Get out of here. 1 second. Let me calibrate my VTuber real quick. Real quick. There we go. Okay, now I'm facing the front. Hi! What the heck is up, everybody? Happy Friday. It is stream day. Pew, 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 pew. Let me just finish getting all my stuff set up. Hello! Hello, wonderful people. What is up? Welcome. Welcome to the special live stream. Welcome to the Castoff 7th and fuck me, I can talk. Welcome to the Castoff 7th anniversary Q&A live stream. Thank you guys for coming. I appreciate y'all coming out. I'm excited. Let's heckin' do this thing. So I'm gonna say hi to everybody in the chat real heckin' quick. Jezreel 2, hello. Lego Flying Pig, hello. Don M. Theron, hello. Alina the Shy, ayo. Psycho Intern 1, hello. Novodot, hello. Robinson Draws, hello. Dupli Ghost, if I didn't already say hi to you, hello. Ace Bird the Weirdo and Blue Jay Songbird, hello. First time chatters, what's up? Austin Draws 55, hello. Matchy Draws, hello. Harpies Are Cool, hello. There's a lot of you guys here. You guys are talking to today. Hi. If I missed anybody, I apologize. But I think Hypergirlio, hello. Hi, everybody, and to everybody who is lurking or those who are watching the archive of this on YouTube, hello. So, today is going to be different from my usual streams. Rather than drawing or playing games or whatever, for the last couple weeks, I've been taking questions from my readers of my webcomic. Because my comics anniversary, it is technically not today. My comics anniversary is technically Sunday, but that was A, Sunday, and B, Easter, which is a holiday. So I didn't want to schedule it on that day because I figured that maybe people wouldn't be able to watch. So we're doing it 2 days early. But yeah, so I've been taking questions from you guys. I've put them all in a little image slideshow for us. To watch and answer questions. So a couple things before we get started. One, I will be taking questions from chat if we have time at the end. But I'm going to focus on the questions that were sent to me via the Google form beforehand, because I want to get through all of those first. And then if we have time at the end, then we can take chat questions. So if you guys have any questions and you didn't get a chance to submit them, you can do that at the end. So stick around because I didn't rehearse answers to most of these, so I don't know how long it's gonna take. And also if you guys have any follow-up questions or anything, I can try to elaborate on certain points. But yeah, gonna get into it. Also, if you submitted a question and I don't answer it, I wanted to focus on questions that were specifically about the comics or the making of the comic. I got a couple questions that were just randomly personal questions for me, like, what's your favorite so-and-so? And I'm like, I want to answer that, but I want to keep it related to the comic since there is a theme today, and we're kind of on a time limit. I'm trying to end this stream by 8 tonight, so it's 3 hours. It should be plenty of time, but yeah. I wanted to keep it on track, on easy peasy. So, I say we go ahead and heckin' get started. So, first question. I made a little image slideshow. You guys are proud of me? It's pretty neat. Can you guys hear the music okay? It's playing, right? Yeah. Yeah, it's playing. Okay, I think we should be good. Can you guys hear me okay? Is my volume good? Is the music good? We're all good. Music's a vibe. Thank you. But yeah. So our first question is from, I am talking, it's true, is from Ty the Humble Bard. Which one of your characters do you feel the most sympathy for? So we're starting with a banger. And that's also kind of a tricky one because I kind of feel bad for all of them for the various things I have put them through. Because, like, Vector, his just whole life has been a shit show. But also, like, he hasn't been able to do much because he's been, like, locked in his house for most of his life. So, yeah. But also, Ariana's gone through a ton of shit. She just makes it look easy because she's a very adaptable person by nature, which is something she gets from me. But thankfully, my backstory is not nearly as tragic as hers, so, you know. And then Frankie, we don't know half of Frankie's shit yet. Is all of them an appropriate answer? Is all of them, like... I feel like trying to rate them is very rude. I feel like I can't properly rate them. All of them is fair. I agree, because, like, dang. Because, like, dang. Now, the least sympathy for, that one's much easier. Of the main cast, probably Rory. I feel like she's the only one. Like, I feel like she's had bad stuff happen to her. She's got her own personal traumas, but also I feel like she's the one who rolls with the punches the best. So, but then of the entire cast that's been introduced so far, fuck you, Cart Guy. I have no sympathy for Cart Guy. He got what was coming to him. Fuck you, Cart Guy. Fuck you, Cart Guy, the national anthem of Castoff. Anyway, moving right along. Next question. We've got a couple questions from Ty here, so we're just going to answer them all at once. Have you ever taken... I thought this was not the first one. Is there more? Yes. Okay, that's back at the beginning. Okay, so we skipped one. Were there any points during the development of Castoff where you thought about erasing an entire main character from existence? I actually talked about this on my last stream, if folks were not here. There were several drafts of the story where Marina and Rory just did not exist. I seriously debated cutting them out for a long time. It was back and forth for a while there. So originally, in the original drafts of the story, chapter 7 is when we would have met them. And then I pushed it back to chapter 8. But chapter 7 is, they originally were going to live in Whitecliff, the city that the cast goes to, that's like built into the cliffside. And then that's where Frankie finds out that they're wanted. Like, that's where they were going to be living. And so that is where the crew would have met them. And their personalities were very different back then. Like, Marina was a lot, like, kind of snappier and savvier. Sassy is not a good word, but she just like, she was on the up and up. She was not flustered very easily. And then Rory was kind of the same, but she was still like a thief, but she was like extremely quiet and just didn't talk at all. And so, those two changed a lot. Just they were going to be in Whitecliff for like 3 chapters, and there was going to be like a whole subplot. Marina was not a healer at this point. She had a completely different power. It was going to be a whole thing, but obviously a lot has changed, and I much prefer the version that we have now. But yeah, there was going to be a couple times where, like, after I moved them out of Whitecliff, when I pushed them back to chapter 8, they were like, chapter 8 took me a while to write because I wasn't entirely sure like what I wanted to do with that chapter for a long time. I just noticed something. Hang on, I'm gonna move the chat over because it looks like it is getting cut off on the side. Boop, boop. Can I scoop the chat? There we go. There we go. Yes, okay, cool. But yeah, so like there were several versions of chapter 8 where Marina and Rory were not there at all, and the trio just washed up on like an abandoned island or just a deserted island where there was no one, or just like completely different places altogether. There were several drafts. Maybe I will share those at some point on Patreon if people are like really curious. Maybe I can make that a Patreon goal. What do you guys think? What do you guys think? Old scripts? What do you guys think? That being said, though, yeah, Dawn, how about the character you did erase? Bold of you to singularize that word because several characters no longer exist. I think the most notable one that everyone and their mom in the theory chat has latched onto is Wild, who is a character who was a shapeshifter, and he was gonna be there for a while. He was just kind of like some weird feral kid who like didn't talk, and he was just like, hey, I'm gonna unveil a mystery for the guy, for those of you who actually bothered to show up. Wild was basically he was like this weird feral kid who could turn into animals. And the reason in the old, I can't pull it up because I don't have a link to it. I'll post a link in the Discord later. By the way, here's a link to join the Discord if you want. The reason he looks so much like Vector is because the first person Wild ever met and turned into was Vector. Like, Vector, like, found him, and so Wild was like, a human, I can do that, and just turned into, like, a very close approximation of Vector, yeah. So that's why they looked so similar in the old art, is just because it's like, Wild was just like, yeah, this is what a human looks like, I'm doing it, I'm nailing this. That's why they look so similar, yeah. He could have looked like anybody, but yeah, Vector was the first person he ever turned into, and so that's what he did. And yeah, like, the reason the Wild got cut out is because he literally had no point to the story. He was just there to be there. If you guys have heard of the sexy lamp test, he failed that. He was the sexy lamp. He was literally there for no reason. He was just there to chill and vibe, and so he's not in the story anymore because he had no purpose. Also, I forgot to put my alerts on this new overlay, but Spectissa, thank you so much for the raid. I forgot to put my alerts on here. Here, hang on. I should do that. I made a new scene in OBS, and I didn't copy everything over clearly, but we've had a raid from Spectissa. Hello, air horns. Celebratory. I didn't put the sound alerts on here either. Oh my god, I'm stupid. This chat is broken. This stream is busted. Damn it. Fine. Okay, here. I at the very least have to put audio output capture. I need my Stream Deck sound effects in here. There. Can I do air horns now? There we go. There we go. There we go. But yes, hello Raiders, thank you guys so much for the raid. Hate to raid and run, but I got a dinner reservation in 45 minutes. Totally okay, I will take care of your people. Hi to all the new folks. My name is Star, and I'm talking about my webcomic today. I'm gonna drop a link in the chat. It's 7 years old on Sunday, and so we're doing a Q&A live stream. I just posted a link in synopsis in the chat. If you guys are interested, there's some pages down there. If you guys are curious and want to go check it out, there you go. Ikoshin and A Curious Nature, thank you for the follow. Welcome to the stream, squad. And Mechanomi Arts, thank you for the resub. Oh my god, I gotta get my alerts on this overlay because this is bumming me out. Where the heck is it? Browser source, add existing, alerts. Okay, good, we have alerts now. I'm gonna shrink them a little bit, and now alerts will pop up. Thank you guys, I appreciate the follows. Kripes, thank you for the follow. Welcome to the stream, squad. What the heck is up, everybody? We're talking about my comic today. But yeah, so back on the subject. So Wild was one character that I deleted. Ace for the Weirdo, thank you for the follow. Welcome to the stream, squad. And yeah, so Wild is probably the one that people know the most about, just because he was the only one who really was represented in like concept art at any point. However, he was also arguably the character with the smallest role. Like he was gonna show up pretty late in the story, and really there was just no point to him. There was no point to him. That is why he is gone. There was another character, I forget what I named him. I think it was Skylar was the temporary name. I talked about him either on a stream or on Discord before. But he was going to be like a rival character of Ariana's. He was also going to be a bounty hunter rival type character, and he was only going to be in there for like 1 or 2 chapters, but he was going to have a pretty big impact on the party as a whole, because he's a dick. The Girly Wolf Pup, thank you for the follow. Welcome to the stream, squad. And I'm trying to remember some of the others. There was another character named, what did I name her? Charity. Charity was like the the like the temporary name I gave her, just as it was like a stand-in because I didn't think of anything better. Because eventually she did get deleted and then subsumed by Marina. Charity basically became Marina. Like her personality is what Marina is now. So it is just like they just ate her. Just ate her and absorbed her powers, is that's what Charity ended up being. And there were a couple others that like were in the story at other points, and then just I wrote them out because like the innkeepers in chapter 3, they were gonna have a kid named Arthur. He was in the original concept. Stormfist Gaming 33, thank you for the follow. Welcome to the Stream Squad. But yeah, so they were gonna have a child. He was going to be in the story for like a little bit. He was in the original NaNoWriMo version. Yeah, it's a bit too obvious a name. Yes, it was. That is why it was a placeholder name. I think that's all that I can remember off the top of my head. Those are like the main ones. But yeah. That's that for now. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Okay, we already did this one. We got a little bit out of order. Have you ever taken ideas from fans and added it to the comic? Castoff is a NaNoWriMo story. It used to be. Like, the first written draft of the comic was, I did write it for NaNoWriMo, but it had a pilot comic before that. Your mystery purple character has appeared. No! You guys don't the purple character is Sonia, and I'm gonna tell you this until you guys believe me, alright? There is no purple. There is no purple. Stop it. Slap you. Okay, so have you ever taken ideas from fans and added it to the comic? Short answer, no. Long answer, I wouldn't. Just because, like, I've pretty much known what was gonna happen in Castoff for a while. Like you have an outline for a story and you know what's gonna happen. You like go in and like you tweak stuff and you make things change, but like I've known how Castoff was going to end since before I started the comic, basically. I've like changed a couple of things on the journey, but for the most part, everything has relatively stayed the same. Milo, you are not allowed on that windowsill. Do not make me wrangle you during the special stream, please. My cat is here and she's here to cause mischief. But I think I have beta readers. I have a couple of my friends who I show my scripts to in advance just to be like, hey, how's this? Do you have any suggestions for this? I'm stuck on this part. What do you think I should do? I've done that with like very close friends and I've taken some of their suggestions a handful of times. But I've never taken an idea from my fans and been like, oh, hey, the theory chat had a cool idea. I'm going to put that in the comic now. That has never been a thing. However, that being said, I think the closest anything has ever come to becoming a thing happened so long ago, it was before the comic even existed. I forget who it was. I'm not Milo. No. I think it may. Okay, so I'm taking you guys back in time for a little bit. You know Tumblr. You know the website Tumblr. Well, your girl was on Tumblr quite a lot in like the 2010 to 2014 time period. That was my social media of choice when I was in college, aka when the bulk of Castoff was being developed. That was like my main social media. That was where I lived for a long time. And a thing on Tumblr that you could do is if you had like original characters, people could send you like questions about your characters. And a lot of times you could like reblog a list of prompts. It's like, hey, send me a number and I'll answer this question. And like it's like a numbered list of questions. So a lot of information about Castoff characters got shared from people who followed me on Tumblr, going through and like asking questions via like these little ask prompts that I would reblog and things like that. And I cannot for the life of me remember what the question was. It may not have even been an ask prompt. But I remember I wasn't able to go back and find it. I'm not even sure if this is still on my Tumblr, because I deleted a lot of stuff off of Tumblr a couple years back because I got paranoid about stuff. But I remember at some point, a long time ago, like the earliest drafts of Castoff, Frankie was not in the story nearly as much as he is now. He was a relatively minor character. He only joined the party for like 3 chapters and then left. But I drew him a lot because he was a very fun character, and I drew him a lot with Ariana and Vector. Ariana and Vector for a long time were like the main characters. They were just the two main characters, and then Frankie was a side character. I never talked about that very much, because I didn't really talk about like the events of the story very much. It was just like, look at this character, look at this personality, yay! And aside from the main 2, Frankie was the 3rd one that I drew the most. And I remember, I cannot for the life of me remember exactly. I think it may have been Rami, the person who makes Soul to Call. Very good webcomic, by the way, that you guys should be reading. We would send Ask back and forth to each other a lot. I think they were the ones who were like, I love your main trio so much. Like, there was like a message of that. And I think it was Rami. I could be wrong. I'm gonna go back and check. But I remember getting that message and I was like, I mean, they're not really a trio. It's really just like Ariana and Vector and then this other random guy who shows up for a couple chapters. They're not really a trio. But what if they were? And so, the fact that Frankie is in the story as much as he is, you guys can thank that one Tumblr ask for that, because I started thinking about it. I'm like, well, wait. Frankie's fun. What if he was in the story more? What if he was like a more important character though? What if I like stuck him in there more? So yeah. That is, I think, the closest it's ever been to taking ideas from a fan or just fans, because it wasn't necessarily an idea, it was a misconception that I thought was fun and then rolled with, and that's how Frankie still exists in the comic. That is how it happened. I gotta go back and check. I gotta go digging through my Tumblr and seeing if that ask is still there, because yeah, big impact on the story. Just one little misconception can change a lot. Okay, so I think I guess one further thing to this is there have been ideas that people have like posted in the theory chat or just like in the comment section that I think are cooler than my ideas and I wish I could implement, but I never did because it wouldn't work. I remember pretty early on someone's thought that Vector's teleportation was also like a time warp thing. And I remember getting that comment and I was like, God damn it, that would have been so cool. It is far too late to implement that, but that would be so cool. But yeah, that's not a thing. That's not gonna get implemented. I just thought it was a cool idea. It's like, dang it. Dang it, that could have been cool. Dang it. Anyway, moving on. From Brady, what was your inspiration for your characters? So I've talked about this at length many, many times. The original idea for both like just the story in general, and also my main character Vector, was inspired by a weird dream that I had in college, that was something along the lines of like, I called it a not Legend of Zelda, that's what we're listening to, Lord of the Rings and Code Geass crossover, because I watched a lot of Code Geass. It's one of my put it on in the background shows, so I've watched it many, many times. And so Vector's character design has pretty much stayed the same as it was in that dream. I completely changed his personality though. He went from like buckle down, angry military revolution leader to small soft boy. In like the course of 3 days, as I like doodled him after the dream, was like, wow, that dream was cool. Let's try and figure out what the hell that was. And then I just like whittled down his character into something completely different. Yeah, he was the Lelouch of the story. That's basically what his personality was. He was a total dick, leading just like this military revolution. And I'm like, no, he's a soft boy now. It's like, I like this character, but we need to make some tweaks. He's a little bookish nerd now. He's a small boy. And then as far as Ariana goes, I am not sure if I have ever talked about this. So this will be a treat for you guys. Ariana's original origins date all the way back to my first webcomic, actually. So before Castoff, I had a webcomic called Psy, P-S-Y. That one I ran during my first 3 years of college, basically. And it wasn't good, but it helped me learn a lot. You know, you got part of getting better is failing, and part of learning how to make webcomics is sucking at making webcomics for a while, and that's what Psy pretty much was. Yes, it's also very hard to Google, because I named it that about 6 months before Gangnam Style came out. Ruined my SEO, but anyway. There was a character that we never got to in Psy. We never got far enough for him to finally show up. But his name, what the fuck was his name? I don't even remember this chump's fucking name. It's something dumb. It's called Nelson. That is absolutely not what his name was, but let's call him Nelson, because I don't remember what his name actually was. He was a character who was gonna show up later, and his whole thing was like, he was kind of the villain, but he was gonna like kind of turn to the good guy's side. He was like the son of the main antagonist, and he was like just kind of there. He was like a mediation force between the protagonist and the antagonist. He was just like a dude, and he had a wife who I wasn't sure if she was ever going to show up in the story, but I designed her and she was there, and she looked exactly like Ariana, but she had black hair. I also do not remember what her name was. It was something, I think it may have started with an A. This may have been where Ariana came from. I don't think it was Ariana, but I think it was something similar. Anyway, I liked that character design, but I ended up not using that character for anything, and so I just took the character design and I stuck her, and I was like, I'm just gonna take you, I'm gonna bleach your hair, and I'm gonna make you into a totally different character. I think art of her is still on my DeviantArt. It's like it's like in a sketch dump that I posted, like a sketchbook, just a long time ago, just like, here's a whole bunch of doodles from my sketchbook. And I think it's still on my DeviantArt. If you guys remind me in the Discord later, I will go find it, because I am like 99% sure it's on my DeviantArt somewhere. I do not remember this character's name. I do not remember if I ever gave her a name, but I remember I doodled her, I liked her design, I ganked it, and I took it for Ariana. She had like black hair and kind of like the blunt cut bangs, and just she eventually evolved into what we have as Ariana. Yeah, dun dun dun. Okay, that's another alert that I don't have set up here. I'll do it for you. Sound alerts also don't work. Ugh. Yeah. I remember seeing art of Ariana shipped with a guy from Psy. That is a completely different character. And that was just because that was the fault of my friend Sarah. Kai from my webcomic Psy, yes, very confusing, I apologize. He's also a broody boy with a sad backstory, and so my friend Sarah, aka my podcast co-host, aka my roommate back then, was just like, I ship them because they're both broody and they can help each other overcome each other's problems. So that was a thing. That was just kind of a crack ship, but that never went anywhere. Now Frankie's story I've definitely told before, and I have posted this piece of art on Patreon before. You kind of got to go way back, but it is there. So when I was in art school, my friends and I used to do a thing where like each of us, there would be like a group of 3 or more of us, and we would all sketch something. And then we would pass our drawing to the left, and then another person would ink it. And then we would pass them to the left again, and then the third person would color it. So then by the end, we have a whole bunch of fully finished pieces that are all collaborations between ourselves. We did this a lot in college. And the very first concept art of Frankie was a drawing that I sketched and another friend inked and another friend colored. And he was basically just like this dude with like random clock gears sticking out of him. But I liked his design very much, and so I just kind of kept it, and I just fucked around with it until, like, and just kind of kept him in my back pocket. And then at some point I was coming up with like ideas for Castoff, and I'm like, you know what? I bet I could squeeze this other random character in here. Here's a fun fact. Castoff is basically just an amalgam of all the random weird character designs that I've ever come up with, and I shoved them into the same comic together. I'm like, I bet I can make these guys play nice. So like, I think Ariana was maybe the only character in the main cast who was designed specifically for Castoff. Zara too, maybe. But like, Vector originally came from a dream. Frankie was just like a random character I designed. Marina, I think, maybe was just a doodle, and because she was a different character before. If you guys have ever seen the cursed white Marina art with the heart-shaped eye patch, you know what her deal is. And then Rory was an entirely different character who I just came up with, was not in Castoff, and then I liked her, and then I'm like, you know what, I bet I can fit you in here. I bet I can squeeze you in here. And I just found a way to make them all play nice in the same comic, and so that's how that happened. Alright, moving along. From Karina, are Vector's eyes bright enough to let him see in the dark, or do they only emit a slight glow? Both. So Vector can see in the dark, but his eyes probably aren't bright enough to be a human flashlight. There is a slight glow, but it's like a glow stick. They glow like a glow stick. So they're not like as glowy and visible in the bright lights, but if you're in the dark, it's just like two little glow sticks. just looking at you. His big ol' peepers. So it's like not enough light to read by, but also he does have dark vision if we're gonna use D&D terminology. So yeah, that's what his deal is. From Novadot. How did you first come up with the setting and premise for Castoff? So this question has a couple different answers, and I'm gonna take a drink of my water first. I've already sort of answered part of this question. Okay, so the premise, like I said, was kind of inspired by that weird, like, Code Geass Lord of the Rings crossover dream that I had. I've changed a lot. A lot of it has kind of sort of stayed the same, but, like, how shit happens has kind of changed. I just know that, like, the original premise has existed for a very, 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 very long time. I remember like sitting around the table, the breakfast table at my dorm in freshman year of college in like 2010, 2011, and like telling my friends, but then they find out that blank is actually blank and all the main characters are actually blank. And I remember my friends just going, what? That's so cool. So the original concept has been in place for a while, and so it was mostly related to that dream that I had. I'm not going to go into too much detail, because a lot of that is spoilers. As far as the setting goes, I've talked about this on streams before. The setting is actually the part that I am least confident in Castoff. I wish I had gone a little more creative with the world building, you know? I like what I have, but I wish I had gone a little harder into like building out an interesting world before I started the comic, you know? Because for the most part, it's just like kind of generic fantasy. Like the story really is just, or the setting really is just a backdrop for the rest of the shenanigans, so it didn't need to be anything crazy because the story is about the characters, you know? So like the setting itself didn't need to be anything super fancy. It's kind of just basic. It's fairly basic because it doesn't need to be anything fancy because the story does not revolve around the setting aside from like the magic system, you know? The one thing I will say is that the magic system, oh no, not the magic system. The magic system came from the fact that I really like setting limits. I like knowing what the limits are in a world and then fucking with them. Because I feel like if you walk into a world and it's like, magic can do anything, magic can do literally anything, what are the stakes then? Why do I care? What are the stakes? If magic can do literally anything and everything, then what's the point? You know, it's just gonna be a Deus Ex Machina the entire time. So why do I care? So I would much rather see a world with limits and then see how the characters can work around those limits. I think that Full Metal Alchemist was a big inspiration for Castoff and just my storytelling in general. And so, like, there's limits to alchemy. There are characters who break those limits, and there are exceptions to the rules, just given some characters, and then that bumps the stake up. It's like, well, wait, why can you do that? That's supposed to be impossible. How can you do that? And, like, it inspires you to ask questions. It inspires the reader to try and figure out why. Versus, oh, I can shoot fire out of my hands, and literally magic can do anything. It's like, okay, well, yeah, that's the thing. That does not inspire questions. That does not make me curious about the world. That's just like, okay, well, if you want to solve this problem, literally all you have to do is magic it solved, right? So that's kind of where the concept of the magic system came from. And then one other thing, the concept of like tech and technology being included, but also kind of a faraway thing that doesn't have too much impact on the story, is entirely the fault of Fire Emblem Awakening, and just the Fire Emblem franchise as a whole. Because I talked about this on a recent stream, actually. There was something that they kind of drilled into us when I was growing up and taking, like, history classes in high school and stuff, and they were saying, like some of the best and most useful inventions and revolutions in, like, health and science and technology comes during wartime. Because people are just, like, so busy, like, pushing for these new things for, like, fighting in war, all kinds of, like, crazy ingenuity comes out of wartime. Fire Emblem is a game where people have been at war for, like, hundreds of fucking years and they're still hitting each other with swords. And so it's just like, fuck you, Fire Emblem. I understand that fantasy combat is cool, but you would have figured out how to make a tank by now. That is not to say that there are tanks in Castoff. Guns do not exist in Castoff because I said so. But that's a whole separate rant. But yeah, so that's basically why there's tech in the Castoff universe, is like other nations have figured it out. And so Castoff's setting is basically like magic and technology have existed separately. They've developed separately just based on what each landmass, like what each separate landmass had to offer. And they're just within the last, like, 100 years or so starting to intersect with each other. And so, like, if I ever did a Castoff sequel, it would definitely be more, like, steampunky as, like, the magic and the technology kind of start to merge together. But at this point, they're still so new to each other that, like, things like people like Frankie are very new and very bizarre. And, like, there was, like, that one dude in the first chapter who has, like, a radio and it breaks. And everybody's like, well, why would you need to do that? We have magic. And so they're still getting used to each other. Still warming up to each other. Magic and science don't really interact much. But if I ever did a sequel, they would. So, I don't know. Castoff sequel, maybe? Oh, it's way too early to be thinking about that, but yeah. So that's kinda... Yeah, Frankie can't pull out a gun. No, he's only got lasers, which is basically the same thing. In regards to, towards limits in magic, what if you could only use a certain number of fire attacks, like 6, for example? How would that place in Castoff? It wouldn't. Just because of how I've written the magic system. That sort of limit is not especially interesting to me. That's a little bit D&D game rulesy. You know, it's like, oh, I can only shoot fireballs 4 times. It's a little arbitrary and weird, and it's like keeping track of your ammo. I just don't find it especially interesting for a storytelling thing, you know? They can use their gems as a radio, so yeah, making one does seem silly in that world. Exactly. So yeah, like I said, if Castoff, like, I just like the idea of a world where magic and technology interact, but they were developed so separately of each other that, like, they kind of are weird around each other, but it will only continue to intersect. I think that is interesting, and I'm gonna keep playing with it. Anyway, I gotta move on because I've been rambling for a long time. Here we go. From Novadot, which characters are the most fun/difficult to write for? I would say that Ariana is probably the easiest to write. Followed shortly by Frankie, because Ariana's just grumpy all the time. And Ariana's just basically what I'm thinking in my head all the time, and I'm too nice to say out loud. And it's just kind of fun to like I've said before, like Ariana is the douchebag that I wish I could be when I was placed in dumb situations, but I'm too non-confrontational, so I just think it in my head. And so she's probably the easiest to write for, but also she's got a lot going on in her brain. And so I've told this before, but basically how I write Ariana is I write the first draft and then I go back and I cut down her dialogue by like 50% because when I'm writing, I tend to be wordier than I need to be. So I just it's like, okay, Ariana would not talk this much. And I go to just like slash her dialogue in half, just get rid of like half of it or more. Cause she's like, I want her to be talkative, but she's not. She's not a talkative character. She's very emotionally constipated, if you know what I'm saying. And then Frankie's just a happy boy. He's just a good boy. Describing them like that makes them sound very one note, but Frankie's reaction to 90% of things will just be the most excited version possible, and so it's pretty easy to figure out. He's predictable, I suppose you could say. It's pretty easy to guess how he's gonna react to certain things. At least for me. As far as difficult, definitely Marina is the hardest to write for, because I think that she is the least like me of all the characters, I think. She's very just kind of like nurturing and caring, and I am not. I'm not the mom friend. I'm like the weird supportive aunt who just shows up every now and then and just like gives you a thumbs up with sunglasses before speeding out on the highway. Or at least that's how I am in my head. And so when I'm writing Marina, I'm like, okay, how would a mom friend respond to this question? What would a person who like, God, I'm burying myself here. But it's like, okay, what would a nice person say in this situation? Like, my thing is, I like to think that I'm nice. I'm just not good at using my words to be nice. I express niceness through actions. And so a character who is nice with words, like Marina, is very, very difficult to write. The fight that she and Ariana have in chapter 10 on the rooftop, like that verbal fight, it took so long because I'm just like, what would she say here? Because like, okay, she finally snaps, but she's still nice, so what the fuck is she gonna say? That scene took forever to get to a satisfying conclusion. Oh, it took so long to write just because she's so hard to write for. I love her, but my God. Yeah, everybody else comes pretty naturally, but Marina's the one I have the hardest time like weaving dialogue for, if that makes sense. Okay, moving on. Do you have any references for how each character's voice might sound like? I actually do on my YouTube. There's a link in the chat. I made it a long time ago, and honestly, some of the voices I would change, or at least find better examples for. The one for Frankie, I would argue, is probably the most accurate. And I'm sorry that you're going to have to go digging quite a bit, but the title of the video is called Castoff Voice Headcanons. I've tried to like go back and just go digging around on, what's the website? BehindTheVoiceActors.com. I've tried to go like digging around and trying to find like, what do I think that this character would sound like? With like additional members of the cast like Marina and Rory and Zara and all them. Haven't been terribly successful because like I know in my head what their voices sound like, but it's hard to find like a voice actor that fits that perfectly, you know? It's tricky. Maybe someday I will go back and do an updated version, but don't hold your breath. It's not a project that's anywhere on the burner, much less the back burner, you know? Anyway, where is my water? I'm thirsty. Okay, moving along. What is your favorite scene from Castoff so far? A lot of them. A lot of them. It's hard to pick a favorite because my favorite shifts depending on which is the favorite scene that I have written so far. I'd say of the ones that have happened so far, the fight at the the combat at the end of chapter 5 was a lot of fun, and the wait time up until that scene where Frankie finally goes apeshit. Watching everybody trying to, dropping hints and trying to see if people could figure out what Frankie's shit was before the reveal. It was so much fun, and I loved every second of it. And then when it finally actually got revealed, it was just like, yes, 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 yes! What else? There's been a lot. It's hard to remember some of my favorite older chapters, though, because I don't go back and reread my old comic. What I will say is that a scene that I have been excited for a very, 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 very long time will happen before the end of chapter 10. It may be the scene that I am drawing right now. And that's the only hint you guys are gonna get. Anyway, from Ace, which character or characters are your favorite to draw? Ariana is the easiest to draw. Her hair shape is the easiest to keep consistent. And also, I just really like drawing characters with angry faces. I don't know what it is. I just find it very fun. Angry faces are the most fun for me to draw just because you scrunch your face up so much and you just draw the little nose scrunches and just it's so much fun to draw angry characters. And Ariana's angry all the time. So she's real easy to draw. I've said in the past that Frankie is the hardest one of the main cast to draw because drawing happy characters is extremely difficult. I don't know why. But drawing happy characters is the hardest thing for me. Frankie's big face all the time, his big happy face, that he just constantly makes, is so hard to draw. Why did I make a character who's so fucking smiley? Because smiles are the hardest expression to draw. God damn it. But yeah, Ariana is probably the easiest to draw. But also Vector, I just love drawing his hair, and he's just a good boy, and he has fluffy hair. He's a good boy. He's a good boy. I love he. But yeah, so those two, I'm glad that they're my favorites to draw, because I draw them arguably the most. But yeah. Alright, moving along. From Harpy, who's in the chat, hello. Is there any particular scene you're really looking forward to drawing/writing? I have already answered this in part, but there are several more scenes that are coming up. The biggest one that I've been excited for a very long time is at the end of chapter 10. There's a lot more coming up that I'm very excited for. Make Art with Maki, thank you for the raid! Hello! Welcome everybody! What the heck is up? Hi! Thank you for the raid. Hi, my name is Star. I am an artist, but I am not drawing today. My webcomic turned 7, and so I am doing a Q&A live stream for questions about the comic. I'm gonna drop my raid intro. And also a link to my comic for new folks. Hello. I'm gonna get a drink. Get a drink real quick. I'm thirsty. So yeah, really looking forward to the end of chapter 10. Also very much looking forward to just being done with chapter 10 because holy shit, it has taken me over a year to draw. Chapter 10 is so fucking long. I said this on Twitter a couple days ago, but by the end of chapter 10, that chapter will account for 1/6 of the entire comic. Just by page count. But yeah, so that seems looking fun. There's a whole chapter that I'm really looking forward to. We're not going to get to it for a while, but there's a lot. There's also some stuff in chapter 11 I'm looking forward to, and chapter 12 that I'm looking forward to. Oh my god, you guys. Like, the next couple chapters are loaded with scenes that I've been excited for years. So, get hype. And if you haven't read my webcomic, now's a great time to start. Heck yeah, I'm very hyped. Like, pretty much from now, for the next like 5 or 6 chapters, every single chapter has at least one thing that I am super duper mega excited about. Which is what you want, really. Like, ideally, every page you're excited about, but, you know, sometimes you just gotta bridge between scenes you're really excited about, and oh my god, there's some fun shit coming up in the next few chapters, you guys. I'm so hyped. I'm so hyped. Anyway, next one. Boop. Also from Harpy. Is Frankie still canonically claustrophobic? If so, why is that? Answer is yes, unless I forget. I'm not sure if it's ever gonna come up in the actual comic itself, but that factoid that I believe you probably got from me posting about it on Twitter comes from the fact that when he came on a boat to Alveria, the continent he's on now, or I guess the country, when he was on his way there, he basically spent like a month or two just in a box below deck so he wouldn't get wet. So he doesn't like being in cramped spaces because it reminds him too much of that. And again, I might forget. Anything that is not canonically in the comic, I might just forget. So don't fight with me if I just forget to put that in the comic, because I wrote that. I came up with that factoid like years ago. It's not gospel till it's not final till it's vinyl, baby. If it has not been said in the comic, don't consider it fully canon, because I may very well change or just forget. So there is that. There's that. Moving along. How long has Frankie gone without revealing his secret somehow? Bold of you to assume that he hasn't revealed his secret somehow. He has revealed it several times. It has never gone well. This is why he was very upset when his secret got outed to the party, because he thought the bad things were going to happen once again. It has happened many times. And the poor boy has some trauma, which I have hinted at many times. Yeah. Frankie's not good at keeping his secrets, but that's what makes it fun, and also traumatizing for him. Fun for me, not fun for him. But yeah, it has happened several times. Moving on. What was Frankie's character like before the Wholesome Cartographer was born? I have talked about this on stream in the past. So Frankie's original personality was he was not cheerful when I was first writing him. He was much more, is pragmatic the word I'm looking for? I'm not sure. Basically, he was just he was a professional navigator. Like, that was his thing. He was just like very good at it. And he knew that he was good at it, and so he charged a handsome fee for his services. And his whole thing was, as long as I don't get paid, I don't care. You can do whatever the hell you want, but I'm gonna do my job. So he was very much more focused, not nearly as happy-go-lucky cheerful as he is now. He was a lot more like kind of blunt, straight to the point. But I changed that because Ariana was already kind of that. And so I'm like, I can't have a party with 2 assholes in it. This boy's getting a rewrite. And it was kind of like Vector in that his rewrites happen pretty quickly. It's like, yeah, all right. I'm not in love with this character. I think I can make you into something lovable. And then I made him into a golden retriever of a character. So that's where he came from. Is like, okay, we need some joy in this party. Yeah, no, he was interesting, but he wasn't fun. You know? You can't have a party with 2 assholes in it. If your main group is 3 people and 2 of them are dicks, then no, it's not going to be fun to read. At least, and not in my opinion. You gotta be he's gotta go be a good boy. You gotta get a good boy in there somewhere, and Vector's too shy to be the cheerful good boy, and he's also too traumatized to be the cheerful good boy. So it must be Frankie's turn to take up the mantle. It shall be he. Alright. It seems Vector is gradually growing more bold and less anxious. Would you say so? I would absolutely say so, because that is the entire point of Chapter 10. Well, one of several. But basically, I wanted to separate the party for a while so that Vector could have his moment to shine. And, like, kind of have... Chapter 10 is all about, like, character growth. You know, like, that's kind of the theme of Chapter 10. It's like, okay, we're going to take away the training wheels now. And so now you have to have this character moment to prove that you can make it on your own. So, like, I wanted to show that he could still exist as a competent character without Ariana being there as, like, a crutch. You know, because she's been there the entire time. Since he stepped outside, she has been there. For better or worse, she has been there the entire time. And so I figured, like, we need to have some time with them separated, or else he is going to be entirely reliant on her for the entire story. And so Chapter 10 was all about separating the party and yes, giving all of the characters moments to grow and learn and kind of grow off of each other and learn how to, like, interact with each other and learn how just growth under stress, basically, is the entire theme of the chapter. And also it's like character bonding, and characters like learning how to exist in this world and how to solve their own problems. You know? And so Vector's kind of arc for this chapter is, like, kind of learning that he doesn't have to be afraid every single time, because he is competent, he just hasn't had a chance to show it yet. You know? And so yes, that you have struck gold and you have hit upon the entire premise of what Chapter 10 is supposed to be. We're not done with Chapter 10. In fact, those who are not on Patreon, the fruits of his labor has only just begun to show itself. But here's a quick plug that if you guys subscribe to my Patreon at the mage tier or higher, you get to read pages at a chapter at like 8 pages ahead. And this entire scene is pretty much done. The scene that just started for the main site, it finally, it just finished. The scene just wrapped up for patrons. There's like a couple of like little extra pages at the end of the scene, but yeah. I just joined this morning. Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate it. But yeah. Everybody gets growth in Chapter 10. You get character growth. You get character growth. Everybody gets character growth in Chapter 10. Because we love to see characters evolve under stress. Characters are like diamonds. You gotta squeeze them real hard. You gotta squeeze them real hard. You gotta put them through the ringer if you want them to shine. Put that shit on a t-shirt and sell it. Alright, moving on. From Don Theron, hello. What are some deleted scenes you really like that didn't make it into the final script? There are a lot of, like, kind of goofy one-liners or single conversations that I just couldn't fit into, like, I couldn't make them fit on the page, really. And it's like, okay, I really love this conversation, but it physically does not fit on the page, and if I try to squeeze it in, it's gonna make the pacing awkward, so I'm just gonna cut it, but I'm gonna be real sad about it later. There's so many of those. There's so many of those. Aside from, like, full scenes, it's a little bit more, it's harder to say just because the comic has gone through so many rewrites. Child the Gamer, thank you for the follow. Welcome to the Stream Squad. Any chance some of those conversations will make it into the 700 tier reward for Coma Strips? Maybe? they kind of require context, and so the strips are meant to be just like kind of just silly one-off gags, and I promise you guys I will get to those one day. I have not forgotten. I will get to those one day. I'm just so forgetful. Your model looks amazing. Thank you. I feel like I'm forgetting like some big examples. But it's just like, if there were, they've been out of the script for so long that my brain has just kind of forgotten about them. There was like a whole arc in the more original stories. Like in the earliest drafts of the story, where the characters spent, like, instead of all their character growth coming from chapter 10 and like learning a lot of stuff about themselves and about each other and like figuring shit out, Vector's original like kind of learning to adapt arc took place at like this magic academy. So like the characters were gonna spend like I talked about this in the How to Webcomic book actually that I wrote, which by the way, there's a link here if you want to learn how to make a webcomic. I wrote a whole book about it. Wink. There it is, linked in the chat. But I actually talked about this in the How to Webcomic book. There was originally like a 3-chapter arc where the main characters just end up at this magic academy, and then they all like take magic lessons together and they talk about their backstories and stuff, and I liked it at first, but the longer it was in this comic, I realized they're stuck in one location for a really long time, and this comic is supposed to be about adventuring. I'm just gonna take the important bits and I'm gonna put them somewhere else, and I'm gonna yeet this plot line from the story. Because it was literally just like 3 chapters of them just like being at school. And I'm like, this is not the tone. This is not the tone. But yeah. I'm trying to think of like any specific scenes that didn't like evolve into something else. Because like the original version of chapter 7 actually did not take place in the city. Chapter 7 originally took place largely on the water. Like in the original draft of chapter 7, where they're supposed to be like taking the ferry to the next location, they actually got on the ferry pretty early on in the chapter, and then like all the revelations from that chapter happen on a boat. And then the finale of that chapter is they get into a fight with the guard who figures out that they're there, and then they get pushed overboard. And shit happens. But I didn't like it, so I changed it. Aside from that, I can't really remember too many, because like I said, it either evolved into something else, or I just kind of threw it out because it wasn't servicing the story. But, yeah, there have been a lot. I just can't remember too many off the top of my head, because it's been so long. Moving on! And to go along with that, what are some ideas you originally had that you are glad you didn't use? A big question. Because there are so many. I've already covered this earlier on in the stream. I've cut a lot of characters just because they overall didn't service the plot or the story. Wild, a pointless character who was removed for not doing anything. Ariana's rival character was removed for just not really advancing the plot much at all, aside from being an antagonist for 1 chapter. Centipede Vector. Which is the curse that I placed upon Twitch chat the moment I revealed that existed. Centipede Vector, originally Vector's power was not teleportation. Originally his power was that he could just turn into a big monster thing. But he did not know that he had this power. And so it was a shock to him when he suddenly got really afraid and then turned into like a weird giant wolf centipede thing, basically. And I was just like, this is dumb, and I don't want to draw that. So I changed it. But that lasted for such a short amount of time that I don't even have any concept art of it. It was just like the very, 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 very earliest drafts. I didn't even get around to making any art of it. I was just like, this is dumb, and then I changed it. So rest in peace, Centipede Vector. We will never see you, and we should be glad for that. It's gonna give me nightmares. Good. Gave me nightmares too. Be glad it's not in the comic. Alright. From Paula, will there be a romance subplot in the comic one day? Calling it a subplot is very generous. There will be romance in the comic. Do not hold your breath. Do not hold your breath because you will pass away before it ever happens. But there will be some. There will not be a lot, but there will certainly be some closer to the end. It's not going to be like an entire subplot, I would argue. Some people might argue it's a subplot, depending on like how they view what the definition of a subplot. I would not consider it a subplot. I don't think there's enough of it there to be a subplot, but I know that a lot of people would probably argue with me. Word of the writer is it's not a subplot. But it does exist. Eventually. Not yet, but eventually. Not yet, but eventually. Someday, maybe. Unless I decide to write it out, which I very well might. Who knows? Probably won't. But I could. I'm powerful. I'm the writer. I can do whatever the fuck I want. I could kill all the characters in the next page and you guys wouldn't be able to do anything about it. Just saying. I have that power. I'm not going to, but I could. Alright, moving on. How long do you plan for Castoff to be? It's been 7 years and I feel like we haven't even met all the characters yet. You haven't, first of all. There are several characters you guys have not met yet. And after seeing how much you guys dig through art and like theorize about who certain characters could be, I have made it a point to never publicly share concept art of any future characters anymore because I didn't want you guys making theories about them. So yeah, no. There will be more characters. There's like, God, I don't want to put a number on it because then you guys are going to be too excited. But there's more than 3. There's more than 3 main cast members who we have not met yet. Shut up about purple. But yeah, so as far as how long Castoff is, okay, I'm seeing stuff in the chat and I'm reminding you guys, it's not final till it's vinyl. Do not take old stuff for gospel because things have changed since those were written. I swear to God, you guys are gonna make me go back and just delete any concept tweets that I have. If you... I'm gonna take your toy away. You theorize too much about stuff that doesn't end up being in the comic, I'm gonna take your toys away. Gonna archive everything. Just save it for me. But yeah, so there's several characters you guys have not met yet. And I've said this before, chapter 10 I consider to be the halfway point of the narrative. I'm not sure if it's going to be exactly the halfway point chapter-wise, but I'm expecting Castoff as a comic to be around 20 to 21 chapters plus the epilogue. I can't guarantee that because there's a lot of leeway for things to change and grow and adjust and all that nonsense. Because the cool part about making a webcomic is I have an outline, but the script could change drastically between then and there. Like, the concept for chapter 10, I didn't have until, like, a couple years into the comic. Because, like, the comic started in 2015. I think 2017 is when I originated the idea of a more interesting chapter 10 that was not just a boring chapter where they would just traveled and nothing happened. I was like, well, what if I split the party? What if I split the party and made them deal with that, consequences of that? That's around when that happened, I think. Because I was like, I remember the exact instant it happened. I was walking to school when I had first moved to Japan, and I was like, oh, that would be cool if that happened. But what if I did, though? And then that's how chapter 10 came into being. But yeah, so chapter 10, I consider, like, the end of chapter 10 is kind of the halfway point of the narrative. I'm aiming for it to be around 20 chapters. I don't know it's tricky because I haven't written super far ahead. Like, I know what's gonna happen, but I don't know exactly where the chapter breaks are going to end up happening. Like, I know how it ends. I know everything that they're gonna do to get to that point. I just don't know exactly how many chapters it's gonna be because it depends on when the breaks happen. I don't know. gonna take a sip of my water again because I've been talking for almost an hour and a half straight. Okay, moving on. Do you name your characters based on the meaning or metaphors, or do you just go with whatever sounds best? Largely the latter. My method of naming characters is I design a character and then I stare at them really, really hard, and I try and figure out what the first letter of their name should be. It's like, you look like your name should start with an A. And then I will just make random mouth sounds, basically, until, like, that start with A, until I have a character name that I'm excited about. Like, that's how I named Vector. I'm like, I like doodled him on my sketchbook, and I looked at him, and I'm like, you look like your name starts with a V. I think I want to start your name with a V. And so I just like, Vincent, no. No. Vector. Yes. I did that with most of my characters. The half exception to this is Zara, whose name actually does have some symbolism behind it, and I'm not going to say what it is because it's spoilers. I'll tell you guys about it once more stuff happens. I think chapter... Okay. End of chapter 12, I will tell you guys about Zara's name and where it came from. But until then, you guys get to live in secrecy. Chapter 12, I will tell you guys what his name is. Anyway, where's my heckin' water? My god, my throat is killing me. That is all I'm going to say on the matter. Very few characters actually have, like, symbolism. Zara's the one who still does, but I'm not going to tell you guys about it till later. Okay. Will we get any Marina backstory? Yes. Next question. We're not going to get too much on Marina, just because her backstory is not as involved as some of the other characters. Her backstory is, like, I don't want to call it bland, but a lot less happens in the plot for her. It's just like, her backstory, I would argue, is the simplest, and so there's just kind of less to say. So we're not going to do like a super deep dive into her backstory, but I'm sure that we will get more details for it later. I'm not sure when that's going to happen, but I'll find a place to squeeze it in there. We've already gotten a little bit out of her. We've already gotten like a little bit out of her in chapter 10, but we will probably be getting more in later chapters. Can everyone just have a break? They deserve it. No. Next question. What do I look like? What do I look like? Some saint who never lets anything bad happen to her characters? Fuck that. You gotta squeeze them. You gotta put them through hell to make them shine. Anyway. Okay. So from Alistair. What exactly is happening when small boy looks someone in the eye? Like, are they having PTSD flashbacks? Are they hallucinating something other than what's there, or what? I'm really curious as to what happens. So I won't elaborate on this too much because I'm going to try and find a way to, like, squeeze it into the plot itself. But basically the concept is it's different for everybody, which is why people tend to, like, all sort of react slightly differently. Basically, you look in his eyes and you experience fear. Whatever that means for you, that is what happens. And again, I'm going to go into it more in the narrative later, so I am keeping it vague. But basically, you look into his eyes, and whatever it means to feel fear for you, that is what happens. So yeah. Again, keeping it vague on purpose, but I hope that at least somewhat answers the question. From Oliver. What part of the webcomic came to you first? Was it a certain character or a certain plot point, etc.? So I've kind of vaguely answered this, but I can elaborate on it a little. The very first, like, dream that I had that became Castoff was it gave me the idea for just like sort of the main idea of the plot, and then it gave me Vector. And so like I said, Vector's appearance stayed pretty much the same, but his personality changed entirely. And then like the main premise came from A, that dream, and then B, also what's the word I'm looking for? Oh yeah, I was in a color theory class around the time that I had the Castoff dream, and so that had a big impact on the story, which is kind of a weird thing to say, but I promise it will make sense later. Anyway, what's been the biggest thing you've learned from doing this series too long? Write less. Make your comics shorter. If it doesn't service the story, move along. If it doesn't service the narrative, take it out. Yeah, killing your darlings is definitely a thing, because like webcomics already take so much time and so much work. Why would you spend time drawing a thing that you don't like, writing about a thing that you don't like, writing a thing that doesn't actually help move the narrative along? Like, I try not to make my storytelling waste my readers' time, if that makes sense. You know? It's like, me personally, I understand that other writers are not like this, but for me personally, if it doesn't serve the narrative, I don't put it in the comic. Or at the very least, if I do put it in the comic and I realize that it's not serving the narratives, I try to take it out. Because webcomics take so fucking long that if I put every single goddamn thing in the comic that I wanted to be in the comic, it would take me 20 years to finish, and it would be bloated and just filled with all this nonsensical fluff and just everything. So I try to keep it tight. Try to keep it neat, and Castoff has definitely helped, because like I said, the story started as a how many of my weird character ideas can I squeeze into one webcomic and make play nice with each other. And so when that's your originating concept, you kind of gotta like figure out what to cut, you know, what makes the cut. And the answer is what you see. What you see in the comic is what remains after all my various cullings. Alright. Also, I guess just a lot of other things that I learned from the comic ended up in the how-to webcomic book that I wrote. Link in the chat. Just keep your characters easy to draw, because you will be drawing them so many times. But I kind of knew that before Castoff. That's why everyone's designs are so simple, because I know that they take me a long time to draw if I give them details. And so I try to keep them pretty simple so that I can draw them quickly and I don't have to worry about forgetting details. Except for Zara's fucking sleeve stripes. But it's fine, moving on. If you could see any scene so far of Castoff animated, which one would you want to see? Pretty much any fight scene. But I especially like the fight scene in Chapter 7. Like that shit, I would love to see that in motion. One of my, or it's not so much anymore because I haven't really watched it or engaged with it for a while, but I was kind of into Ruby for a couple of years when I was when I was in college, like when they were airing like volumes 1, 2, and 3, and I fucking love the fight scenes, and so I tried to take inspiration from the fights, and I'm like, this is so cool, I want my comic to be like cool fight choreography. And like, just because it's a comic and there's only so much I can put in there, and it's not really a comic about fights, I did have to trim it down a lot. But yeah, I just any of the fight scenes I would love to see like animated and like cool magic fights. It's like pew, pew, pew. It'd be awesome. But yeah, the fight scene in Chapter 5 I think is the one that I would most like to see of the stuff that already exists. There's some stuff in like Chapter 12 that I would love to see animated, but I can't spoil that for you guys because it doesn't exist yet. Haha. Anyway, also, I mean, I would love to see the fight scenes, but like I would also just love to see any of the animate any of the comic animated, like, at all. My kid's moving. I want that animated musical adaptation, god damn it. Anyway. How many chapters are left of Castoff? Like I said, I'm not sure the exact number, probably somewhere around 10 to 12. It just kind of depends. Like, the events are pretty set in stone at this point. I just don't know exactly how I'm going to divide up the chapters. So yeah. Aside from that, which character do you find most relatable? From Got7's Agase. Probably Ariana, honestly. I feel like she's the most like me, except that I'm much nicer. Like I said before, Ariana's kind of the asshole that I wish I could be. I'm just too nice. But she's also much more of an asshole than I would ever be to a person, so... but yeah, pretty much every character came from some form of my personality. You just like rip little pieces of your soul out and you just dunk them into the characters. You're just like, okay, you are this now. So like the main trio, I would argue, like Frankie, Ariana, and Vector are probably the ones that I relate to the most, just because they're the ones with the most me in them, I think. And then the rest of the characters kind of spawned around, like, just very... I put a little piece of myself into every character, except Cart Guy. Fuck Cart Guy. And fuck some other characters that we haven't met yet, but yeah. I love them. I love all my characters equally, except for Cart Guy. Fuck Cart Guy. But yeah, most relatable would probably be any of the characters from my main trio. Ariana, I would argue, probably takes first place, but I love all of them. They're all good beans. They're all different parts of myself, so we make it work. Okay. What inspired the name Castoff, and or why did you choose that name? I can't talk about that because that is spoilers, unfortunately. I'll be able to talk about that in a couple chapters, but for now, this is too early. It's too early for me to answer. I'm starting to think you had a bad experience in your life regarding a guy with a cart. No. Cart Guy's just a dick. It's just that one asshole NPC. Anyway. I can't answer that, unfortunately, so we are going to skip. This is from Blank, who did not give me a name. How did you come up with Castoff? Was it an idea that crossed your mind for a while, or was it something that came up with on the spot and did it for fun? I have already answered this. It was inspired by a dream, and then everything else just kind of evolved after that. I don't think I need to elaborate on that much more, really. And then from the same person with no username, is Castoff inspired from anything that you're a fan of? If so, what are those inspirations? Not super directly, but I would say that, like, the biggest inspirations for Castoff, I unfortunately have to include Code Geass in there just because I was very into it at the time of writing, so you can definitely see, like, and, like, I would argue that if I was not into Code Geass, that dream that I had never would have happened in the first place, because it was very Code Geass, and the dream was very Code Geass inspired. But the actual plot of the story, not so much. Avatar: The Last Airbender and Full Metal Alchemist, I would argue, are, like, the biggest inspirations that I kind of draw from for writing just in general, which means that they definitely did influence Castoff. I would say probably that. But also just, like, Legend of Zelda and, like, fantasy RPGs in general. Just because I like magic. Fire Emblem was also definitely up there, but not until, like, later in development, because I didn't play Awakening until, like, a year before I started making the comic. But yeah. And so yeah, I would say Full Metal Alchemist, Avatar: The Last Airbender, and Fire Emblem are probably the biggest inspirations for the story as a whole. But yeah. From I Have No Social Skills Help, is Vector romantically attracted to any gender? If so, what are they? Sorry if this is a weird question. Romance has got to be the last thing on his mind right now, but I'm curious to know. That is a tricky question to answer because you basically wrapped it up. Yes, romance is pretty much the last thing on his mind right now. You have to remember that he has really had almost no human interaction aside from his mom, his adopted mom, for like his entire life. He doesn't know what the fuck a romance is aside from what he like read in books that he probably wasn't supposed to be reading. But yeah, will he ever have romantic attraction in the future? Perhaps. Is it gonna come up in the comic? Not really. He's got to work on himself and learn how to have like actual bonds with people before he can even think about having any form of a romantic relationship. He's got to learn how to have friends first. That's his priorities. He's got to have friends first. And also, yeah, it's been like 4 days since he was kidnapped, so like he doesn't know how. He's just a ball of anxiety like half the time. So yeah. Like when he figures that shit out, will he have like some sort of romantic orientation? Yeah, sure. It's gonna take him a while to figure out, so it's not something that's ever gonna come up in the comic probably, but I'll let you guys have your whatever headcanons you want, I suppose. Yeah. And from Sirius Fox, I wonder how Miss Jacobs is doing. Me too. Me too. Hydrate and a stretch break at the same time. Yeah, 7 years equals 4 days in webcomic time. Although I guess one follow-up I will say to the Vector romance thing is in the earliest drafts of Castoff, like the early drafts, he and Ariana were gonna be a couple at the end. And before you scream at me, you have to understand that in the original drafts of the stories, he was older and she was younger. They were only like 2 years apart in age. And also, like Frankie was not third wheeling for the entire story. And so like the whole story was just kind of about them like getting closer. And so like at the end of the story, they end up a couple, and I didn't like it. So I took it out and changed it. So that is all I will say about that. Gotta do that hydrate. Anyway, I think, yes, okay. So that is the last question from the Q&A form. So now, I think I'm gonna let this go another like 30 minutes. Because if I go for a full 3 hours like I usually do, I think my voice will die. So I think I'm gonna go for like another half hour. And if you guys want to ask questions, there is a channel point redeem. If you look at the chat box, there's like a little orb thingy. And if you click on it, it's like your channel points. And so if you click on that, there's an option for highlight my message for 100 channel points. If you do that, then it'll be easier for me to see your question, and I can take questions from chat, and we'll do it for the next 30 minutes or so. And while you guys think of questions, I'm gonna go tell Twitter that we are on the Q&A section now. So yeah, I'm gonna do that real quick while you guys ask questions. Okay, let me do this. Okay, so Twitter has been alerted that I am still live. All right. Oh Lord, that's a lot. If the main characters had a day off to do anything they wanted, what would it be? Ariana would just fucking sleep. Honestly, at this point in the story, if all of them got a whole day off, they would probably just fucking take a nap, because these poor saps are so tired. Give them a nap. As far as like what they tend to do with their leisure time, just outside of the story, Ariana likes sparring. She works out. She's a fucking muscle girl. She's a gym rat. I love her. Vector would definitely just like curl up and read somewhere, like in a cozy little corner, like by candlelight and with like a hot beverage. He's that boy. Frankie would just go find like a dog park, and he would just go find a dog park and just pet all the dogs. And then, like, Marina would probably do something similar to Vector. She'd just, like, chill, take care of her plants, maybe, like, do some potting, things like that. And Rory would find a way to cause chaos on purpose. That's what she does. My answers for these are probably going to be a little bit shorter, just so I can get through as many of them as possible. But yeah, so as far as the main cast, that is what I believe they would do in their spare time. Why are you so excited for Chapter 11? Spoiler, 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 spoiler alert, spoiler. Silliest idea you had for your comic? Probably Centipede Vector, honestly. It's still very... it's just a very silly thing, and I'm glad it's gone, because it was silly to the point of being weird, and I didn't like it. Any plans for after Castoff, comics or other stories you want to tell? At this exact moment, not especially, just because Castoff ending seems so far away. I do, however, still have that idea in my head that I want to do, that is the lesbian vampire rom-com urban fantasy, or like, it's not really urban fantasy, but I want to do the freaking lesbian rom-com about vampire Twitch streamers somewhere. Someday I will do that. I kind of want to pitch that as a graphic novel, because it would all fit into like one book, I think. No immediate plans for that, unfortunately. I still want to do it. No immediate plans. Why are some people not affected by Vector's eyes? Spoiler, 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 spoiler alert, spoiler, spoiler. Is there anything in... what I will say is that there is a rhyme and a reason for it. I will not elaborate on this, but there is a reason that will be told within the comic. Is there anything in the early days of the comic that you wish you could redo or retcon? I want to remove the entirety of Chapter 6, if I am honest. I don't like Chapter 6. I would go back and just buy Chapter 6. It's arguably the most pointless chapter. Like, we get some important information from it and the fight scene is cool, but I don't like Chapter 6. I wish I had done something different with it, I suppose. You hate Card Guy that much? It's not even Card Guy. I just don't like that chapter. I feel like I could have done a lot more with it, and it's just, I feel like I could have made it more interesting, other than just talking and then a fight scene and then it ends. You know? But I feel like it's fast-paced enough that people... Oh, and you know what else? I wish I had done Chapter 4 a little differently, so they weren't just sitting at a table for like half the chapter. More than half the chapter. I would have done something with a little bit more involved, I guess, if I had the chance to go back and change Chapter 4. Make it a little bit more interesting visually, other than just, we're sitting at a table for a long time. I would have done something different with it. I have ideas, but it is far too late to change, and I don't care enough to go back and retcon the entire thing, because it's too much. If you had a day off, what would you do? Fucking take a goddamn nap. I tried to do that yesterday. And I did for the most part, but I did still have to edit a podcast episode yesterday, so I tried to give myself a weekend just in the middle of the week because I was fucking tired. But yeah. What's the most important thing in the comic that you've accidentally spoiled? You guys trying to get me to admit what spoilers I've dropped that are actually canon? I see right through you. This is kind of hard, because I feel like if I admit that something is a spoiler, then it would be confirming a thing. And if I consider it a spoiler, it means that it hasn't happened yet. So unfortunately, I'm not really sure if I can answer this one. How did you develop your art style? I drew a whole lot, and I just kind of stole piecemeal from other people. Until I got to a point where I liked it. But like for a more like actual answer, my inking style came from the fact that when I was in high school and I was like inking a lot traditionally, I had an extremely unsteady hand, and so I just like couldn't do thin line work because my lines were so shaky. I could never like draw over a line more than once because it would always end up weird. So what I would do is I would draw a line, but then if I wanted to make it thicker, I would draw over it again, and then I would just kind of like fill in the areas where it was messy, and that's the entire reason why I like thick line art now. It's just, it was a flaw that I just kind of kept going with. And now it's like one of the most visually important parts of my art style, or like visually distinguishable, is I use very thick line art. And that, like, nowadays I have an extremely steady hand that just came from practice. But yeah, I used to want to do very thin lines, and then my hands were too unsteady, so I started doing thick lines instead, and now my hands are steady, but I really like my thick line art, so yeah. Congratulations on 7 years of Castoff. Do you have a favorite character to draw? And if so, who is it? Hi, Ron. First of all, I've kind of answered this question earlier on. But yeah, I like drawing Ariana because I like drawing Angie faces. I like drawing Vector because he's fluffy boy. He go fluffy boy, easy to draw, fun, fluff. Will there be another Frankie Gets Wet scene? Spoilers. Maybe. But also maybe not. But maybe there will be, but maybe there won't be. But maybe there shall be, but maybe there shall not be. Spoilers. No spoilers. No spoilers out of me. This isn't a question, but I would just want to say thanks for making your How to Webcomic book. It just came in today and I'm really excited to read it. Thank you for buying it. I hope it is helpful. What are your favorite genres as a reader rather than a creator? I love horror so much, but I have very, very specific tastes in horror. I don't like schlocky, just like, scary. I like psychological horror. Like, I like what I have watched of Higurashi. I like horror that makes you think. I like horror that just kind of dwells in the spookiness of it all. Like atmospheric horror. I don't like, oh no, there's a serial killer in the woods. Oh no, he's got a knife. Boring. Give me something spooky. Like, I love the Magnus Archives. I love a lot of more just like kind of psychological horror movies. I like some post-apocalyptic stuff, but I have like very specific aspects of post-apocalypse stuff. Like, I hate The Walking Dead because it's just The Walking Dead is just sadness porn, and I cannot stand it. If I'm gonna watch something sad, there has to be some sort of light at the end of the tunnels for the character to reach for. Otherwise, what the fuck is the point of the story, you know? Like, there has to be... You cannot write... This is my spicy pop culture take of the day. You cannot write hopeless horror. There has to be hope, or else at that point your characters might as well just off themselves, because otherwise what the fuck is the point? I hate The Walking Dead because of this. The Walking Dead, there is no hope. It is just go from point A to point B, try not to die, get sad when people die, try to move on, but then someone else dies. There's no hope there, therefore I do not care. It is just sadness for sadness sake, and I cannot fucking stand it. And don't say, you just haven't watched it. I have. I suffered through 2 seasons of The Walking Dead, and that was enough to know I wasn't gonna get anything out of that fucking show. I don't care for it. Anyway. What was your favorite scene to draw? I like a lot of scenes. I like especially, I'm actually having a lot of fun with the scene that I'm drawing right now because I get to use my favorite color palette, which is gradient from purple to blue to red to orange to yellow. Like, that color scheme is my favorite, and I'm getting to use it in this entire, like, back half of the chapter, and I'm so excited about it. But also I just have a lot of fun with action sequences, even though they are hard to like thumbnail and storyboard, I still have a lot of fun with those. What would the characters do with cell phones? I don't know. Call people? Play Tetris? Vector would get really good at Snake, probably. Yeah, Frankie being a robot was basically confirmed on her DeviantArt years before she ever started writing the current version. Yeah, exactly. Like, I feel like I can't post any sort of art of any future characters ever, at least not publicly, because people will see them and be like, ah, I know what is happening now. And I'm like, okay, there got to be a point where my readers were too smart. And I'm like, okay, I'm not showing you guys work in progresses anymore. I'm posting those on my private Twitter from now on that only my, like, close friends follow. But I'll dump them all on you guys eventually. Once we unveil certain characters, I will dump just like all of my spoilery art onto you guys once they're actually revealed in the story. How do you determine which tarot card is which character? I actually went through a bit of like just a fun tarot card phase for like a week and a half a couple years ago, and I just like went through like the meanings for all the major arcana, and I just went through it. I actually have like a full tarot deck in mind for Castoff, but some of the characters that are in it haven't shown up yet, therefore they are spoilers. Like, if I wanted to make the tarot deck and have it not be spoilery, I wouldn't be able to make it until, like, chapter 16 or 17. Because of, like, how long it's going to take some plot reveals and some character reveals to happen. But I do have a freaking Google Doc buried somewhere in my Google Drive that's just, like, all of the characters' tarot cards and, like, descriptions of what they look like. And so for now, we're only getting the ones for the main cast as designs for the male clubs. But maybe someday in the future, eventually, I will make a full tarot deck for Castoff. Not like a full one, but like just the major arcana. Will you be playing Omori or Amnesia on stream if you love psychological horror? I like watching psychological horror more than playing it, so I haven't really considered like playing those on stream. Also, I didn't know Omori was horror. I know nothing about that game, basically. But yeah, the games I play on stream are just like the games I want to play, and I just stream them because it's like, well, I'm gonna play this, I might as well stream it. Maybe in the future, but at this point, there's no real current plans. Since your comic is rated PG-13, will there come a time when Ariana will drop an F-bomb? Yes, absolutely. I know exactly when it's going to come in the script. I know exactly what scene, I know exactly what page, I know exactly what panel the F-bomb is coming. It's PG-13, she gets exactly once, and it will not be wasted. I'm trying to find other questions. Dare I ask what happened to Frankie's long hair? It got burned and he had to chop it off. Basically, whenever Frankie goes berserker mode, he just various things have happened to his hair, and he keeps having to like trim it a little bit, and then it's just gotten shorter and shorter and shorter over the years. It gets damaged, and he has to cut it off little by little. And so now he's very sensitive about his hair, because if he chops much more of it off, he's not going to have any left. So yeah. Was Marina's name and the fact that she lived by the water a coincidence, or were you being cheeky? It is me being not clever. Because, like, basically Marina was going to be just, like, the placeholder name for her, and then I just got attached. And I was like, well, I can't imagine another game for you. Or another name for you. It's like, I think you're just Marina now. That was just like kind of the placeholder name, and I got attached, and so now that's just what it is. So, you know. Let's see. How much constructive criticism do you get from your friends? How about comments online? Are you your own worst critic? Definitely. I am definitely my own worst critic. I, like, peeking behind the curtain here, I definitely go through, like, it kind of comes and goes in waves, just kind of depending on how my mood is, but I definitely have times where, like, I'll get a compliment on the comic. It's like, oh my god, this is my favorite comic, and my gut reaction is just to go, are you sure? Are you sure, or are you just saying that to be nice? It's like, are you sure? There's other comics that are better than mine. It's like, why is mine your favorite? And like, that's just when I'm hard on myself. But yeah, like, I definitely like have moments where it's like, why would anyone fucking read this? It's not good. But that's just kind of what happens when you sit with it for so long. You kind of get tired of it. Like, I am not tired of Castoff, but like, it's just weird to me, I suppose. It's like, it's hard to explain, but like I feel like any artist goes through like self-doubt and just doubting their work. And it's just like, man, there are so many other comics who are doing XYZ like so much better than me. It's like, why would mine be your favorite? So I have that quite a bit. I definitely am my own worst critic. I do seek out concrit from friends. My podcast co-host, past roommate Sarah, is probably my biggest beta reader. Mostly just because she demands to see early pages constantly. And so like whenever I'm like unsure of something, I'll send her like the script that I have so far. I'm like, Sarah, please read this and tell me if I sound like a crazy person. Does this scene work for you? Does this make sense? And most of the time she's like, yeah, it works. And I'm like, okay, cool. But then a lot of times she's like, it doesn't really work. I think you should do X, Y, and Z. And I'll be like, I will take that into consideration. Thank you very much, my love. But yeah, if I have constructive criticism, if I seek out constructive criticism, I have a group of people that I go to. I don't typically seek out constructive criticism from the public, because if you do that, you risk like, I never want Castoff to be like designed by committee, if that makes sense. Like, I don't want my comic to please everyone, because that's impossible. And I feel like if you try to please everyone, you're just going to come up with a product that is unsatisfactory. So I try to please myself. When I make this comic, I keep myself in mind, and like maybe like 2 or 3 other people who I know really, really enjoy the story, and I'm pretty sure aren't lying about enjoying the story. And so I'm like, okay, as long as these people like my work and I like my work, then I'm good. As long as these handful of people still enjoy my comic, then I think I'm on the right track. Everybody else can fuck off. I'm kidding, I promise. But yeah, it's, I guess that's all I have to say about that. Moving on. Fabled F-bomb, yes. How did you manage doing art and your comics and study work all at the same time? With great difficulty! I am overworked about 90% of the time. I've been trying to get better about it. But my dream is to one day make enough money on the comic that I can focus on it more, and then I don't have to spend so much time doing other things to make myself money. There's a link in the chat to my Patreon for just no reason. No reason at all. Anyway, I will go ahead and plug this, that this month, if you join the Patreon at the Mage tier or higher, you can get this month's mail club postcard for free. I'm giving it out just this month as a special little anniversary snack, special little anniversary treat. And if you join that tier, you also get to see pages like a month early. It's like 8 pages in advance. That's like a whole scene in advance usually. So hey. Wink. What is the origins of the design of your VTuber avatar? This isn't really comic related, but I will answer it. I wanted it to look like myself enough that I could still cosplay myself, but also just have like kind of a cool fantasy, fun character design, you know? And so I just made it me, but like fantasy, but also cool, and wearing a cool outfit that I like with a color scheme that I enjoy. It's kind of a boring answer, but like I do have like the design process. It's all archived on my Twitter. Like you can watch me go from A to B to C to B to D, like trying to figure out the design. Also, I just like elves. I just like having pointy ears, so you know. How long did it take to plan the plot and create the characters for Castoff before you started actually drawing it? Would you say that's a good time span for planning a longer sized comic like this one? My thing with Castoff is it was a daydream project for a really long time. Which is a daydream project would be described as, I'm gonna think about it really, really hard just all the time, but I'm not gonna do anything about it. And so like, I would like think about the characters, and I would think about the plot, and I would think about all these other things. It's like, oh man, if I ever make this comic, I'm gonna do this, and it's gonna be cool. And Castoff was that for like 7 years. Five, I guess. It was closer to 5. Because when I first came up with the idea for Castoff, I already had a webcomic. I already had Psy when I came up with the idea for Castoff. And so I didn't want to be running 2 webcomics at the same time. So I'm like, yeah, Castoff is cool, but have you seen Psy, my cool webcomic about psychic kids? And so Castoff was a daydream project pretty much for like the first 5 years of its conception. And then after I shelved Psy because I hated it, I was just like, yep, it's time to go back to that one. And then I actually started making it, and it's been a thing ever since. As far as would you say it's a good time span, I would say so. It definitely gave me enough time to like percolate on the characters and kind of get the bad ideas out of the way first before like the good ones kind of came in. Because a lot of times your first idea will not be the best one. Your first idea will not be the one that you end up sticking with. I definitely recommend giving yourself time to percolate. I don't recommend starting a webcomic as a spur of the moment thing. I recommend giving yourself time to percolate on it and like think about your ideas and get kind of some of the cliche, like not so good ideas, not so polished ideas. Basically, you gotta put your ideas in a rock tumbler and just let them clank around in there for like a couple years. Get all the sharp edges off so you're left with something nice and shiny. I've been making a lot of rock metaphors in this. But it's true, you know? I recommend like just letting your characters and your concepts and your ideas just kind of tumble around for a while until you kind of figure out what would work and what wouldn't, and give yourself time and space to come up with ideas that you'll really, really treasure being able to work on. I'm gonna take a pause and take a drink for a hot second. Okay. I understand that you can't say too much about the lab incident that happened in Frankie's backstory, but can you confirm whether or not it happened directly because of Frankie? He certainly thinks that it was. Whether or not he is an unreliable narrator will come to be obvious later. Anyway. Again, spoilers. I can't go into too much detail because it's spoilers, but yeah. If no one else has asked it, how did you get started in D&D? Did it affect your writing? Absolutely not. It did not affect my writing because I didn't get into D&D until like I first listened to Adventure Zone, which was my first brush with D&D in like I started listening to it in like 2016. Like late 2016. Castoff had already been running for like almost 2 years by the time I had any interest in D&D, and by that point most of the plot was planned out already. So not really. Like, D&D itself, I would argue, no. Have I put my D&D characters in the background of some shots? Absolutely. Did it affect the story? Absolutely not at all. Not even a little bit. I got started in D&D just because all my friends played it, and I got started DMing because all my friends were like, oh my god, I want to play D&D, I want to play D&D so bad, I want to play D&D. Cricket, cricket, cricket. No one actually wanted to DM. And then I was like, you know what? I've watched Critical Role. I could probably figure it out, and then I did, so. Let me see. I'm looking for more highlighted questions. I think that is all of I've reached the bottom of chat. I reached the bottom of chat, which means I believe I had answered stuff. How excited are you for Omori's character to be revealed over time? That's a D&D character. That's not a webcomic character, but I'm supposed to answer very. So very excited. I don't play a D&D character unless they have some form of spicy secret, and Omori's is very spicy. I'm excited about it. Are elves legally allowed to walk around in the streets? Do they get judged or looked at weird? I am going to let my world building speak for itself. But I will say, it's legal. They're not like fucking slaves or anything. They're just different, and that will come up in the narrative over the next couple of chapters. We're gonna go a little deeper into that in chapters like 11 and 12. So yeah, I'm gonna keep that vague, just because it will be answered in the narrative relatively soon. If you have to choose one himbo to keep while everyone else gets deleted forever, who will it be? How dare you ask me such a question? How dare you make me choose between all of my husbands? Probably Herlock Sholmes. Listen, he's so dumb and I adore him. But also Elvis is so good. Listen, Elvis is just gonna go off into the fairy world and live with Adele forever. He's fine. And how dare you make me choose? Herlock Sholmes, call me. Anyway, will Cart Guy making another appearance just to be brutalized? I don't know, maybe. Cart Guy doesn't even have a name because I wasn't gonna bother with him. But, I don't know. Maybe he'll just show up and I'd just punch him and then leave. He's like the reporter in Mass Effect. He shows up just to get punched. Oh no! You guys, I don't have the freaking... I don't have the audio alert set up on the stream. I don't have it. I don't have it set up and I don't know how to refund the points. Oh no. And I think that's something I can do in other settings. But I can't do it from this screen. I don't have sound alert set up on this overlay, you guys. Just imagine the viola. Just imagine the viola. Just imagine it. What is the relationship between elves and magic? I noticed that Zara still has magic gem despite being an elf, which makes me think. Keep thinking about it. This will be revealed in time, like I said. You guys are asking me a lot of questions that I want to go into, but it will get answered in the plot, and so I want to let the narrative speak for itself in some of that stuff. You know? Are you having fun? Yeah. I feel like Cart Guy was one of those characters that was created for the purpose of being an asshole that nobody likes. Correct. Correct. All my homies hate Cart Guy. Cause fuck Cart Guy. Ever got the urge to put a deck of many things in front of your characters? You guys, these aren't comic questions. This is for comic questions. This is the comic Q&A. The answer is yes, but I haven't yet. Maybe I will in the future. Comic questions, please. I might go ahead and wrap it up soon. Will we ever see the Chapter 6 Elves again? I don't know, maybe. Who's Cart Guy? Character in my webcomic. Read my webcomic. Castoff-comic.com. Boom, there it is. Will Farron be appearing in the main story? In side comics, maybe. In the actual main plot, no. What was the first webcomic you ever read? I think it was Awkward Zombie, probably. I can't remember if there was anything before that. I just broke a lot of people's hearts by saying that we're not going to see Farron in the main story. Again, we might see it. If we see it at all, it's going to be in flashbacks, but the characters will not be adventuring to Farron. It is too far away. They will not be running away to Technology Land. Save that for the sequel. Save that for the inevitable Castoff sequel. But yeah. Are Clara and Danny going to be important, at least somewhat? Again, if we see them, they're probably only going to be in flashbacks. I figured Frankie would not want to go back there anyway. Correct. He came here for a reason. You guys are trying to whittle spoilers out of me, but like, I have no problem confirming things that will not be in the comic, but then if I don't answer something, you guys will be like, so that's gonna happen. It's like, no. Is it possible for someone to have a white or black aura gem? Yes. And will we see someone in the comic with that? Probably. It's just easier. I like pretty colors, and so they tend to have pretty colors. Can someone have a rainbow gem? No. You get one. You get one color. It's your color. Your special soul color. That's it. Originally, like, I had ideas for, like, cool concepts for, like, how to use the gems and, like, the color of your aura and how that would apply to your magic. But I ended up kind of simplifying it a little bit. I was gonna have, like, a whole thing where, like, if you have a white aura, it's usually pretty easy for you to find a job like making lights and lanterns and things because white gives off the most light, things of that nature. It ended up, I wasn't really able to fit that into the narrative. If I ever do like behind the scenes world building documents, I might try that and put that info out there, but it's not really ever going to be important to the story, so I didn't really squeeze it into the narrative very much. Since Frankie is special, is he really 15 or just thinks he's 15? He is 15 years old as of his initial activation. His body may be older, but he has been alive for 15 years. And so he counts himself as being 15. Even though he's basically been like an adult person his entire life with like thoughts and feelings and all that. He didn't have an infancy per se. So whether or not he counts as like actually being 15 is debatable, but he has been active and alive for 15 years. That is how he counts it. Is it possible to be... Oh God, chat's moving and I keep having to scroll back up. Is it possible being bonded to 2 or more magic gems at once? Yes. You are not limited to 1. And this is going to... How the magic gems work is going to come up more in the next few chapters. And so I'm going to keep it vague, but you are not limited to just 1. You can certainly have more. However, most people just have 1 because you don't... I mean, having more than 1 gem does not make you stronger. Like, they don't combine. It's like you have a knife and then you have another knife. It doesn't make your knives sharper. You just have 2 knives. Does that make sense? Like, they do not augment each other. It's just like, I have a knife and I have a second knife. They cannot combine to form a sharper knife for cutting through more things. I just have 2 knives. Yeah. How does fireworks setting? Black powder or fantasy explodey powder? Fantasy explodey powder. Because, so I'm not sure if this is ever actually going to come up, but like in my head, how it works is fireworks are made of like the remnants of the magic powder, or like, oh God, sorry. The firework powder is like leftover like detritus that's made after like mining the ore that's used for the magic stones. And so it lights up and explodes, but it only lasts for like a couple seconds before it's like, okay, I'm done. But yeah, like that would also be a thing for like just random back information that's not actually going to come up in the comic. You do not need it to understand the story, but if I ever do like extra world building stuff, that might be a thing that gets put in there. If it's not spoilers, could Frankie bond a Magi Gem or no? I'm gonna keep that vague because that may or may not come up in the story. I haven't decided if I'm gonna do this one thing yet. We'll just say that it's spoilers and we'll come back to it later. Are some of the settings in Castoff based on real life locations? I definitely like use Pinterest of like cities to like kind of design like what buildings look like and stuff. White Cliff, the city built into the cliffside, I definitely used a lot of reference for Santorini, Greece. That's the most notable one though. Art Batwing, thank you for the follow. Welcome to the stream, squad. 2 knives are arguably better than 1. Yes, but having 2 knives does not make you have a sharper knife. It just means you have 2 knives. We haven't really seen many monsters or fantasy creatures around. Plot reason or too impractical to draw. They do not exist. Castoff does not have fantasy creatures. There's no dragons in Castoff. It's not that kind of fantasy story. It's not a JRPG. Is Frankie ever going to reveal himself on purpose to Rory and Marina, or will they find out on accident like the other 2 did? I don't know. Spoilers. J-Corn, thank you for the sub! What's up? Or 5 gift subs. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Aw, hi Jay. Thank you. Aw. I'm moving down in the chats because I'm trying to read questions. You telling me it's spoilers is way more interesting than an answer than a simple yes or no TBH. Well, good, because I'm gonna have to answer a lot of you guys' questions like that. What is a non-spoilery world building detail that you're really proud of? I think the whole Magi Gem thing is a lot of fun. It's not spoilery. I like my magic system a lot. I think it's fun. I think having like little magic tools is fun and interesting. Yay. Also, the fact that everybody has a unique color to their magic was definitely inspired by Avatar: The Last Airbender. Specifically, like one of the director commentaries talked about how they gave Azula blue fire and blue lightning so that it would be easier to tell her fire apart from Zuko's when they fought. And I took that and I was like, yeah, different colors, magic. So yeah, that's a lot of fun. Okay, moving on. More question. Oh, Red Stripes, thank you for the stretch break. We're stretching. Congrats, bud, you deserve it. Thank you! I appreciate it. Never go on my Vector is a dragon theories. Nope, not in this fantasy story. If this were a D&D, then yes, absolutely, but not this time. Where else? How's your throat? It's okay. I'm still going. As long as you guys have questions, I think I'm gonna keep it going, but I will eventually have to cut this out for my throat. But yeah. Do any of the characters have any canonical disabilities or disorders? The big one that I can think of, it depends on if you count it as a disability, but like Frankie can't feel and he can't like smell or taste or anything like that because he's a robot, so he doesn't have any of that. Aside from that, yeah, PTSD and anxiety are definitely some mental stuff that the characters are dealing with. Also, I'm not sure if it's ever gonna come up in the story, but Terran is canonically dyslexic. That's why he hates doing his paperwork. I'm not sure if I'm ever gonna like use the phrase dyslexic in the comic, just because like it's a fantasy. I'm not sure if they would know what dyslexia is, la-di-da-di-da, but I've definitely tried to hint at it very strongly at the very least. Can animals bond to Magi Gems? Can there be good boy mage doggo? I honestly haven't thought about it because it's not something that's going to happen. Like, maybe? Like, bugs probably wouldn't. Bugs, if they tried to bond with one, they'd probably just explode. Or just, I would argue, like, so being able to bond with the Magic Gem, it's just like, it reacts. So the Magic Gems are basically just like, they're catalysts. They're what transform, like, the energy of your soul and your life into something that's usable. So if a bug got magic, I don't know what it would do with it. And I don't, like, I haven't really worried about it because it's not something that's ever gonna come up. Let me put it that way. Use your Magi Gem as insect repellent. Oh no! That's horrifying. Okay. Last call for questions because my voice is teetering on the edge here. Final call. I'm stretching. Stretch break, everybody. Stretch break. This has been a good stream. Thank you guys for all hanging out with me. I appreciate it, and I'm happy that so many people wanted to hear stuff about the comic. That's cool. Okay. Is it possible for a mage to overload or run out of magic in this magic system, or does it not hurt them? Scrolled up. Since they're deriving their magic directly from a crystal, they are not deriving their magic from the crystal. They are deriving the magic from themselves. The crystal is simply a catalyst that makes it usable. They can burn themselves out. Like, each person just kind of has a limit. It's like exercise or being able to lift weights. It's like, yeah, some people can lift more weights than others. But also, like, the bigger and, like, more high-ranking your Magi Gem, the more efficiently you'll be able to use that energy. And this is gonna come up in the comic, but yeah, you're not gonna break it by overusing it because it's not doing anything. The Magi Gem is not providing the magic. So you can't just like make it explode by using it too much. That's not the type of object that it is. Can any human bond with a Magigem? Yes. Can you put a Magigem in weapons? This was something I kind of messed with a little bit, but like in the world building, it's like, oh, you would use like little magic gems for other things and like this and this and this and that. It just kind of complicated a couple things, and also like part of the story is that hasn't really been explored too much, but that will be, is that there is actually kind of a shortage of the Magigem ore. And so I feel like if I had that, but then also the gems are being used for like all these little bitty things, it would kind of be weird. And so it was a thing that was in older drafts that I kind of took out to keep it simple, I suppose. But yeah. I'm an old lady when it comes to technology. Are we only able to watch this live? Can we go back later? Yeah, the VOD will be saved, or the video on demand will be saved to my channel for like 2 weeks, but I'll also be archiving it on YouTube for later. Was there a Magigem in the Shame Gun? No. Shame Gun just fired magic bullets. Shame Gun was nothing. Shame Gun, like, one of the reasons I took out Shame Gun is, one, no guns in Castoff. Two, I mean, all it was, Shame Gun was just like, it was like an accelerator for magic so that you could like use magic and just like fire it off like little bolts of it very quickly. So yeah, it was just a tool to like project your magic faster rather than just chucking it. How many characters are ace aside from the main 5, and are there any trans or non-gender conforming ones? I have answered this question many, many times. I will not go into further detail because it is spoilers. I'm sorry. I will say you will find out more about that very soon. So. Like within the next couple of chapters. So you will not have to wait long, but I will not answer that immediately because it is spoilers. I would consider it spoilers. Okay, last call for questions. Final call. There's one character who is canon trans and I know who it is. Yes, I answered this question on exactly one stream for the special people who were there for that stream. This is why you guys gotta come to my streams when I'm just talking about my comic and stuff. Sometimes I'll just give away spoilers for free for people who bother to show up. Yeah. Alright. I think we have kind of reached an end. Kind of reached a natural conclusion here. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and call it a night. And let's find somebody to send a lot of people over to. Bia streaming! Is Bia still streaming? Oh, I hope so. Okay. So, I'm gonna go ahead and call it a stream. Thank you guys so much for being here. I am very excited that you guys all came out. Thank you guys for hanging out, listening to me talk about my comic for like almost 3 hours. I'm glad that you guys enjoy the story so much. Stick around. We are going to be rating an artist friend of mine. I just want to be a sap for a couple minutes. But yeah, I'm glad you guys are here. I'm glad you guys have been enjoying the comic, and I hope that we have many more years of comic fun times ahead. I'm gonna do my shilling. If you are here and you don't know what my webcomic is, here it is. Read Castoff, subscribe on the platforms that you use. I would greatly appreciate it. It does help me out a lot, no matter which platform you read it on. Also, I have a book out called How to Webcomic, so if you want to learn how to make a webcomic from yours truly and learn pretty much all of my tips and advice, you can read that. There's an ebook version that's only $10 for like 150 pages of content, and I also have physical book versions if you like to read stuff in your hands. It's pretty neat. And then also, if you like Castoff and you haven't already, you should join the Discord server where we all hang out and we talk about the comic. It's a grand old time, and I hope to see some of you guys over there. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead, let's start the raid. And that's gonna be counting down for a couple minutes. And yeah, thank you guys for enjoying Castoff for 7 whole years. I honestly wasn't sure if we would ever get this far, but it's very cool that we have, and I'm very thankful and very grateful for all of you guys who have been here and who have stuck with me, and those of you who have been here since the very beginning and those who only found the comic very recently. I appreciate all of you. Thank you for being a part of this community. I'm a fucking sap, but like I love my comic and I love you guys, and I'm very happy that I get to do this, and I'm glad that I get to share this story with you guys. It's very exciting. And remember, the actual comic's birthday is not until Sunday. We're doing this 2 days early, so I don't know. If you guys want to like tell all your friends about the comic and say like, hey, it's been 7 years, go read it. I wouldn't object. I wouldn't object is what I'm saying. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and activate the raid. Thank you guys so much for coming. Next stream will be on Monday. Usual time, usual situation. I will see you guys all there. Thanks again for hanging out. I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.